website that you see there. Actually, I am Terry Milroy. I'm the Coordinator of Education Technologies at Southside Virginia Community College. My facilitators are actually Paige Durham and Forrest Smith from Germanna Community College today. Sorry, we're recycling a slide deck from last week. And our agenda today, we are going to be organizing and filtering gradebook columns, understanding and using gradebook statuses, learning how to use late policies and posting policies, going over a few notes on grade weighting and using point totals. And finally, we will spend a moment talking about accessing SpeedGrader. So let's start with organizing and filtering your gradebook columns. So when you're in your gradebook, at the top left, you're going to see 3 drop-down menus: Gradebook, View, and Actions. If you go to View and click on Arrange By, you'll see in this first screenshot that you have multiple options for arranging your gradebook columns. If you choose default order, which is where they are unless you mess with them, that means that they are in the order in which you have added them to your assignments page or to your modules. So they are not necessarily in the order of your modules, they are in the order in which they were added to your modules. Assignment name A to Z or Z to A, due date oldest to newest or newest to oldest, points possible, lowest to highest or highest to lowest, or you can also organize them by modules first to last and last to first. The last option there, the modules last to first, actually at the end of a semester tends to be really handy so that you can move the things that you're currently grading to the front of the gradebook and not have to scroll all the way to the right. You can also, by the way, rearrange your columns by dragging and dropping them, which I'll show you in a minute. Once you have started dragging and dropping columns, however, note that anything that you add to your course that is a graded assignment will appear to the far right in your gradebook unless you manually move it. So once you start dragging and dropping, everything gets added at the end. It doesn't get added in the order it appears in your assignments page. You can also filter your gradebook columns, and if you click on filter under the same view menu, you get several options. Not everything necessarily that is showing on your screen. As institutions of higher education, we do not have grading periods, so you will not see that. You will see assignment groups, which, if you'll remember, is basically categories as we used to know them in Blackboard. You will see modules, so you can arrange them by module. If you have your sections combined into one course, then you will see the option for sections. And if you have student groups enabled in your course, you will be able to sort by student group. But if you do not have sections combined or do not have student groups created, you will not see those last 2 options when you filter. From that same menu, there is statuses, which we're going to go over later. And you have the option to create for yourself a notes column by checking notes in case, for instance, you're assigning, let's say, research topics to students and you want to make sure you remember who has what topic. You can add that notes column, which is visible only to you. Students cannot see it. And you can either make unpublished assignments visible to yourself or not. If you uncheck it, then they are not visible. So let's take a look at this. And if I go into my course and go to my grades, then you'll see here is the view menu in the gradebook. And you can see that I have the exact same arrange by options that you saw on the slide. So I've got default, assignments, assignment name, due date, points, possible, and module. I can also, if I want, grab one of these columns in a open gray area and drag it to where I want it, and it will rearrange, okay? From the same view menu is the filter, and you'll notice that because there are no sections combined in my sandbox here, I do not have sections as an option, nor do I have student groups because I have no students enrolled in this course. So neither of those options is available to me here, but they would be available to you in your live course if you have those things going on. I can click on notes here, and now suddenly I have a notes column where I can make any notation I need to for each student. And I can also make unpublished assignments visible. I don't know that I have anything unpublished in this course, but if I did, it would show up. Okay, so going back, let's talk a little bit about individual view in Gradebook, because this is actually a benefit to you in terms of being able to sort information by student or by assignment. If you go to the Gradebook drop-down menu in New Gradebook, you have the option to choose individual view. And this will allow you to select a particular section or a particular assignment group and sort your gradebook on this page only by that. You can also, and this is very helpful, treat ungraded as 0. At the end of the semester, please don't do it before then, it confuses students a lot. You can go and just check this box, and instead of having to hunt through your gradebook looking for things that have not been turned in, Canvas will automatically put a 0 in all of those assignments for you. In individual view, you can also hide student names. If for some reason you feel like you are more objective, for instance, when you are grading and don't see student names, you can do that. You can show concluded enrollments. If a student has withdrawn or been withdrawn from your class, and then there's suddenly a challenge to the grade he or she had been earning before they were withdrawn, then you can bring that student and their participation back into your gradebook to look at. And again, you have the ability to show in student info as you're looking at things here. If you go down further, you can select a student and an assignment, or you can just select a student. And if you, like I do, I teach dual enrollment, and the high schools want progress reports for the students, which is not something, of course, as a college that we normally do. But if you wanted to give a progress report for any reason, you can select a student, all of their grades will appear, and you can actually print that as a progress report. So let me show you how that looks. If I go here to the Gradebook menu and click on individual view, all right, here is my individual view. I only have one section, so I don't get to choose there. I can sort by assignments alphabetically or by due date. I can treat all ungraded as 0 if I want to. I have concluded enrollment showing, but I don't have any. And I do have the notes showing because I checked that when we were in the view menu a minute ago. I can, at the end of my semester, download current scores and have a file to keep of my gradebook. And down here, I can select a student and notice that it gives me all of their grade information and their average, the number of points that they've earned out of the number of points possible. And my test student is obviously not doing very well right now. All right, let's move on. So you can also sort the student name column, and this gives you a lot of different options. You can sort by their name, their SIS ID, their integration ID, which would be Canvas's ID for them, and then their login ID, which would be their user ID for Canvas and their student Gmail and all of that. You can also reorder the student names A to Z or Z to A. You can display student names, first name, comma, last name, or last name, comma, first name. If you don't want to see last names because let's say maybe you have 4 Smiths in a row, you want to see first names, you can do that. You can also display secondary information. So you can display the name and an SIS ID, integration ID, login ID, or in my case, none, because I don't have any of that. So in Canvas, if I go back to the gradebook from this menu on the right, in order to sort the student name column, I would click on the 3 dots here next to student name in the header, and that gives me my menu. And you can see that I have all of the options that were shown. If I want to show secondary info, like an SIS ID, it would appear below the student's name, but test student doesn't have an SIS ID, so we don't have one to show. But you can also, from this menu, show inactive enrollments. So anyone who has been deactivated due to withdrawing before the, or dropping before the last date to drop, as well as concluded enrollments in the course. So your first activity in your sandbox or in a course from a previous semester, rearrange the gradebook by arranging, filtering, and dragging and dropping columns, and then go to individual view and see if you can create a student progress report so that you have experience doing that. We'll give you about 2 minutes, and here we go. Okay, we're back. That was about 2 minutes. We're going to move forward now and talk about understanding and using gradebook statuses. And this is where the title "Look at All the Pretty Colors" comes from, because as you may have noticed by now, Canvas tends to populate your gradebook cells with different colors. And they each mean something different. Some of them are within your control, some of them are not. You can change the colors that appear in your gradebook, but these are the colors that Canvas defaults to, so those are the colors that I will be talking about today. So missing are the red cells, and that means that an assignment that was due to be turned in online was not turned in by the due date and time. So Canvas has marked it as missing as soon as that due date and time passes. Late, whoops. Late is blue, and that means that either an assignment was marked late by the instructor manually, or a student finally turned in their assignment after it was marked missing. So Canvas automatically changed the status from missing to late once the student turned it in. Okay, you can also get green, which you see over here on the far right of the screen, which means resubmitted. And this is not a status that you really control. If you give students multiple attempts on a quiz or a test or any type of assessment, once they start a second attempt, or submit, excuse me, a second attempt or more, you will have the green color in that cell saying that students have resubmitted the assignment. The same is true for any assignment in Canvas that a student tries to submit more than once, whether they are allowed to do so or not. Canvas does not prevent and does not give you the option to prevent unless you set a available until date. Does not give you the opportunity to prevent students from submitting an assignment more than once. It doesn't mean you have to grade more than one submission, but they do allow students to submit an unlimited time up to any available until date you set. So once they have submitted a second attempt, it is going to turn the cell green. And the last color that we're going to talk about is this beige or tan color, which means excused. Excused is not, they're excused for being late. This is, that assignment does not count for that student. It's as if it was never assigned to them. So the thing to be aware of is that it does not penalize the student, except that where it is excused in a category where a student does not have very many grades, it will impact the number of grades that are being averaged in that particular assignment group. So it can actually bring the student's assignment group grade down if they don't have that assignment perhaps to leverage an assignment of another lower value. Okay, and before we go to Canvas, let me also explain some other colors, which are the Turnitin status flags. When you enable Turnitin on an assignment, both you and the student see colored flags next to the assignment submission. Blue means that Canvas has detected evidence of plagiarism, which after it was explained to me, is actually almost as concerning as tons of plagiarism, because on an academic paper, you would assume that something would match somebody else, but maybe not. But anyway, blue means absolutely 0%, no thought of plagiarism in the assignment. Green means that less than 25% is believed to match other sources. Yellow means between 25 and 50% of the paper matches other sources. Orange is between 50 and 75% of the paper, and red is over 75. Now, it's important to note that no matter what the status flag is, plagiarism may not be present, but citations, works cited, or quoted material may match other sources and just not be formatted correctly, so Turnitin sees it as plagiarism. Yellow, orange, and red flags are generally something you should investigate. I tell my faculty that if they have a green flag, unless I'm being a real stickler, I don't mess with it, because a green flag can be something as simple as one single bibliography entry that wasn't entered correctly and got flagged. So that I don't really worry about those. In the slide deck, which will be available to you, there is this link to the status guide in the community, and it talks about the Turnitin flags as well as the status flags on the previous screen. But let's take a look in Canvas. And you can see here that this I'm hungry assignment was flagged red as missing, even though I put a grade in there. So if I click on, let me do that again because I did that kind of fast. If I click on the cell and then click on the arrow within the cell, I get this pop-up window that first of all lets me go to Speedgrader to grade this item if I want to. But I also have the opportunity to change the status flags. And the reason the status cell color is red is because I messed with it in a previous webinar. So if I change this back to late, which it originally was, you can see it was 277.55 days late, which is bad, and probably would not have gotten a grade at all, but this is my webinar course, so I kind of play with it. I can also mark this as excused, and the grade disappears. The student has been excused and it does not get averaged in their grade at all. But I'm going to go back to late because I think it's funny looking at how many days late it was. Okay, so that's how you can manually change the status for one of your cells in your gradebook. I also want to show you this particular assignment because it has a Turnitin flag. And I'm also going to show you how to implement Turnitin really quick once we do that. But if I click on the arrow in the cell and I go to Speedgrader, notice that the submission is on the left, and over here on the right, underneath the drop-down menu of the number of times I submitted this, is the Turnitin flag. And I can click on that. It says it's a 79% match. And I get all of the submission highlighted in different colors to tell me what matches what. So I can click on this little upside down, or this little funnel looking thing, and it will tell me every single source that is supposedly matched in the paper, and I can even arrow through all of those sources, and it will go with me and help me find all of those and take a look at them. Okay, so that's how you can look at the Turnitin status for your students. And then we're going to go back to Gradebook. And I do want to show you, before we move forward very quickly, how Turnitin is enabled in case you don't know that. So if I go to Modules and I go to this assignment, okay, and I edit, note that down here under submission type, I have chosen online as the submission type. And of course, this is what we're all doing right now, right? But in normal circumstances, in order to enable Turnitin, you do have to have an online submission status, regardless of what type of course teaching or modality. There are two types of submissions that Turnitin can work with. They can work with a text entry, which means a box appears for students to type in, or they can work with file uploads, which would be uploading a Google Doc or Word doc or whatever. When you make those two choices, you will get the opportunity to choose to enable plagiarism review. It's either none or Turnitin. And if you click on Turnitin, then the very first time you set this up, you will have a lot of choices to make. And when you make all of these choices, Canvas is going to remember all of your Turnitin settings for every course that you teach. You only have to set it up once unless you want to change it. So it asks you where you want to store your submissions, okay? And I just say the standard paper repository. Do you want to compare it against other students? Do you want to compare it to website content? Do you want to compare it to periodicals, journals, and publications? You can check all or just one or two of these, it doesn't matter. Then you get to choose the similarity report. Do you want to exclude certain things so that you lower the percentages and make it a more realistic view of what students have done wrong? So the first thing is exclude bibliographic materials. This means that anything beneath a heading that says works cited, references, or bibliography will be excluded from the report. You can also exclude quoted materials. So perhaps there isn't a correctly formatted citation after the quote, but the quotes are in existence both at the beginning and end of the quoted section. Or you can exclude small sources. And I choose this one particularly because I teach government, and a lot of the papers that are turned into me have the names of legal documents or court cases, and they tend to match each other and my previous students and lots of other students who take government classes. So I have a word small source exclusion. If it's 4 words strung together or less, I don't want it to be highlighted. You can also choose sources as a percentage of the total document. So if you click percentage, you can say if it's 5% of the document or less, I don't care. And it will not highlight any string of words that is 5% or less of the total document. Beneath that, you also have this box that allows you to enable grammar checking using the ETS E-Rater. Basically, this allows the Turnitin report to highlight everything that you want in terms of mechanics. You can choose spelling, grammar, usage, mechanics, or style. And you can use the US, UK, or both dictionaries for it to compare against. The last thing that you need to be aware of is show report to students. It defaults to immediately, so that means as soon as they submit it, Turnitin runs the report and sends it to them or makes it available to them in Canvas. You can wait until after the assignment is graded, after the due date, or never, but immediately is usually the default choice because A, you want students to know what they've done wrong before they do another assignment. And if this happens to be a draft of something that students are going to submit a final draft for, you want to make sure that they have the opportunity to fix what's wrong. Okay, so I just wanted to show Turnitin because I know not everyone is familiar with it. But we're going to go back now to the gradebook. All right. So after all of that, I'm going to give you guys a couple of minutes to do another activity. If you have a test student in your sandbox, or if you have a concluded course where you can look at something without messing it up, click on the cell with a particular assignment submission and change the status of that submission. Keep in mind that you can always change it back. Okay? And if you want to look at enabling Turnitin in an assignment, you can do that too. But I'll give you 2 minutes. Ready, go. Okay, doesn't time fly? All right, we're going to talk about gradebook policies next. So in your gradebook, you have a little gear icon that I'm going to show you in a minute that opens this box for both late policies and grade posting policies. So if you click on the late policies tab, you'll see that at the top, you have the opportunity to check a box that says automatically apply a grade for missing submissions. What this means is that as soon as the due date and time passes for an online assignment, Canvas is automatically going to assign a grade to the student based on what you put in this box. It's important to understand that the percent you put in the box is not necessarily what is going to appear in the Grade Center. If the assignment is worth 100 points, and let's say you're a nice person and you're going to give a 50 for every missing assignment, then Canvas is going to multiply 50% by 100, and a 50 is what's going to appear there. But if this is a 50-point assignment, a 50 is not what's going to appear there. Okay, they're going to take 50 points, multiply it by 50%, and a 25 is what's going to appear there. So just be aware that Canvas does do the math for you, and so you need to be aware and make students aware of what is going to appear in their Grade Center column. The second part of this first tab is automatically apply a deduction to late submissions. So if either you manually mark a student's submission as late, or they submit an online assignment after it has been marked missing by Canvas and Canvas changes their status to late, you can tell Canvas to automatically deduct a certain percentage for every day or hour that it was late with a lowest possible grade of something. So if I, in this particular screenshot, say deduct 10% for every day that it's late with the lowest possible grade of a 50, that means that if a student submits 5 days late, even if I grade it and it's awesome and I would give them 100 points normally, I put 100 in the gradebook and Canvas automatically deducts 50 points and they're going to get a 50. That's the way, and Canvas does it for you. You don't have to do any of these yourself. When you automatically do this, Canvas does the deductions for you. And so in the case of this bottom section, it would say grade 100 minus 50 points late, grade 50. And students will see that. The other tab is grade posting policies. These were put into effect last fall. You guys might remember that suddenly there were some people who students couldn't see grades. You couldn't figure out what was going on. This allows you to choose to not allow students to see grades after you have graded things until you decide to manually make them available. So note that Canvas defaults to the first option on your screen. It defaults to automatically post grades, which means that as soon as you put a grade in for one, or as soon as you put feedback, that student is going to be able to view that through the grades. But if you choose to manually post grades, that means that any grades that are put in after the policy is put into effect will be hidden from students until you go to the Grade Center column and manually post the grades, or you change the course policy here or from the gradebook column. Okay, if you manually post grades, that also means that your comments are hidden from students, not just the grade itself. The only thing students will be able to view if manually post grades is in effect and you have not manually posted is peer review comments, if those are enabled and have been submitted for that particular assignment. Okay, so let's look at these two things real quick. If I go over here to the far right of my gradebook screen, you'll see this little gear icon, which is settings. And if we click there, the first tab is the late policy. And once again, I can check that box and I can be really mean. And I can say that you're going to automatically get a 0 if you're late. And then I can go down here, or I'm sorry, if you're missing up there. And I can go down here and say for late submissions, I'm going to deduct 10% for every day that it's late, and maybe with the lowest possible grade of a 30. I'm gonna just be that way. And then if I update, then that is going to show in the Grade Center. So let's cancel that and let's go back and go to grade posting policy. So you'll notice that right now, just for the fun of it, I have manually post grades turned on. So Canvas is telling me that grades are hidden by default. Any grades that had already been posted before I set this policy will remain visible to students. So you can't go put a bunch of grades in Grade Center and then say, oh shoot, I didn't want students to see it. I'm gonna go to the course or to the column and hide them. Once they're shown, they are shown, okay? Choose when to post grades for each assignment. I can do by the column in the gradebook. Okay, so while a column is hidden, students will not see their grade. Grade change notifications will not be sent to them. Submission comments will not be available to them. If you curve, please don't curve. That will not be shown, and score change notifications will not be sent. But Canvas defaults to automatically post grades. And so unless you have a compelling reason, I know my nurses have started using the manually post grades because of state requirements that students not be able to view their questions or anything after a particular quiz. Unless you have something that mandates it, life is really much easier if you just leave it to the default, which is automatically post. But because I have everything manually posting right now, notice that this column, favorite 80s music, has an I with a slash through it. That tells me that this column is not visible to students. Okay, and so if I click on the 3 dots, the kebab for this particular column, notice that I can choose to post grades and make that go away. I can also go down here and click on grade posting policy and change the policy for the course from that column. Okay, so if I, let's see, if I have something, I don't have anything else graded. Yeah, there I do. If I go over here and I post grades for this column, because notice it has the I with the slash through it. If I post grades and I want everyone to be able to see their grades, I can choose everyone. I can choose graded, meaning if I haven't graded everybody in the class yet, but I have graded some people and I want those people to go ahead and be able to see their submission grades, I can choose graded. Or if this is a course where I have multiple sections, I can choose to enable grades by section by toggling this switch here. Okay, I'm going to click post. And Canvas is tired today. There we go. Notice that the I with the slash disappeared from this column, but it did not disappear from this column because I only posted grades for that one grade center column. You'll also note if I scroll all the way over here to the right, that the total column for this course has an I with a slash through it because I have grades that have not been posted and therefore are not reflected in this total. Okay, and let me show you one other thing about posting grades in Canvas. You can see here what I just showed you, the grade posting policy from the column menu, and the fact that you can post to everyone, only those people who have been graded or the specific sections. But the other thing that I want to point out to you is that when you have grade center columns hidden, students will see the I with the slash through it in their grade area. So 50 is the number of points possible for this particular assignment, but it has an I with a slash through it. And if the student hovers their mouse over that I, it is going to say instructor is working on grades, to let the student know that that is not their fault. They're not missing anything. The instructor just hasn't posted the grades yet. And they will also see the I with the slash through it next to their grade total, just like you do in the total column. Okay, we have another activity in your sandbox. If you would go to the gradebook and set either a missing or a late policy, or both if you choose, and click on the grade post policy tab and set the course policy to manual, or go to a column in your gradebook and put a manual posting policy there. We'll take 2 minutes and ready, set, go. Sorry, guys. I try to always catch that before it does that, but there we go. Hope everyone is wide awake now. Okay, a few more notes to mention before we conclude today. One thing to keep in mind is when weighting your grades, understand that grades are weighted proportionally, not as a weighted average. What that means is that each grade earned is multiplied by the group weight to get the total group percentage, and then those group percentages are averaged together to get the total grade. Excuse me. If you want a true weighted average, everything in an assignment group needs to have the same. So that means that everything in your assignments needs to be worth 100 points, or everything in your quizzes needs to be worth 50 points. That's the only way you're going to get a true weighted average. Otherwise, you are not going to get a true weighted average. You are going to get a proportional average. Also, if you want to use total points instead of a weighted average for your grades, do not set up group weights in the assignments navigation area of your course. The group columns will then display as total points, and you can set the total column to do the same. Okay, you will also need to set up each graded item to points instead of percentages. So let me demonstrate this really quickly. Okay, so if I cancel out of this and go to grades, okay, my gradebook is set up with percentages. And so I've got all of these grade center assignment group columns set up as percentages, and my total is a %. I can change the total to display as points, but that's not going to work right if I have my grades weighted. So what I need to do first is to go to assignments, and at the kebab, the 3 dots up here at the top right, where it says assignment group weights, I need to make sure that this is not checked. Okay, if I check this, then I can put in percentages for each assignment group, and that's going to mess up a total point value. I'm going to have to uncheck that and save. And then when I go to grades, and my total is all messed up because I've been dragging and dropping things around. Where did it go? There we go. I can then say display as points, and it's going to give me the point total here because I have eliminated the percentage for these. So I'm going to have to say, I'm going to have to go back then to each thing that I set up, and I'm going to have to enter grade as points. So I've changed some of these, but not all of them. So that's been changed to points. But I would have to go through and I would have to change any of these back to points instead of a percentage to get all of that to work exactly correct. Okay. The last thing I want to mention is accessing Speedgrader. When you are in Gradebook, there are 3 ways, well, when you're in your course, there are 3 ways to access Gradebook. Or Speedgrader. You can click on the name of the graded item at the top of the column, and you'll get the pop-out window and be able to click on Speedgrader. You can click on the arrow in the cell, get the pop-out, and click on Speedgrader. Or the easiest thing to do is on your home page, you have a to-do list. And when there are things that need to be graded, they are listed there along with a little circle with a number in it that tells you how many of that item are waiting to be graded. If you click on the name of the item, it will take you directly to Speedgrader for you to grade things. And one other thing that I will quickly mention is that sometimes what is waiting to be graded may be, for instance, a quiz where you had multiple choice questions set up, but then you have an essay. There will already be a grade for the multiple choice questions in the gradebook before you grade the essay, because Canvas posts the grade that it calculates automatically. So you do need to make students aware, if you're going to set up assessments that way, that the grade that originally appears is going to be less than their total points, probably, because there are manually graded items. And this is one reason you might want to hide a grade center column before the assignment starts, just so students don't get freaked out. Because if 30 points out of 100 is manually graded and they come up with a 52, they're probably going to freak out a little bit. So that would be one good usage of hiding grades in a grade center column. Okay, to wrap up, we have organized, arranged, and filtered your gradebook columns. We have reviewed the statuses that can be set in the gradebook, as well as the Turnitin indicator flags. You've learned about late, missing, and grade post policies. You've been briefed on the way Canvas weights grades, and you have seen briefly the 3 ways to access Speedgrader. We want to thank you all for being here today. As always, if you have feedback, we would love to hear it. And if you have any interest in any particular trainings in the future, we hope that you'll take a minute to fill out our survey and let us know both your reaction to today's webinar and anything that we could do to help you out in the future. There are resources on this slide deck, which will be available on the edtech.vccs.edu website. And all of these links are clickable, so you will be able to get to all of the items we discussed today. Thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate your attendance. If there are any final questions, I'll be happy to answer them. Otherwise, I hope everyone is safe and healthy, and we wish you a good day.